From beyond the farthest reaches of our galaxy they come. Two brains pulsing with a strange energy. These space brains come to share their love of science fiction movies.
Hi, and welcome to Space Brains, the show where we joy-watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya. We talk about good and great, Surrey. That was a little bit of a slow intro from you.
Well, last time I was editing and my intro seemed I was talking a little bit fast.
No, I think fast, energetic. Tonight, we're talking about Prospect 2018. No one understand what I just said then. The movie is called Prospect 2018. It's directed and written by two dudes, Christopher Caldwell and Zeek Earl.
His name is Earl.
Earl. My name is Earl. His name is Earl.
His name is Earl.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, okay. So that's it's Prospect. Turn back now if you haven't seen this movie. This is your spoiler warning.
Warning.
And when you have seen it, come back.
Please come back.
Please.
Please. How many people will listen to that intro and then just press pause and never
Yeah, they go, ooh, I better stop.
I better stop. Watch the movie and then they never come back. Why did I watch Prospect? Who got me on to Prospect?
Well, Prospect.
But why did that thought enter my brain?
Great movie, but why? Oh,
Why?
Okay, I'll
Yeah.
just move on, shall we?
So Prospect, it's a film that came out in 2018 and it's basically about a teenage girl and her father, and they're traveling to a remote alien moon aiming to strike it rich by prospecting gems. But when they crash land, they sort of need to utilize all of their natural skills to survive the planet, the locals, and also other nasty humans to get back safely off the planet. That's my synopsis of it. I couldn't find a really good synopsis online, which is bizarre because I think it is a pretty straightforward film.
Well, you see, I would have. You could also explain it as being this is a Western movie set within in the sci-fi world.
Yeah, it is a total Western. I want to come back to that. It's a total Western, this film, which is cool. And hence probably why they went the Prospect title. So what was your number one takeaway, apart from it being maybe a sci-fi Western? Sorry.
My number one takeaway is that in the far future where we visit other planets, colours seem to be important. The moon is called green, and there's a pink man. No explanation. In the movie, or from me.
No.
There is a pink man.
He's a creepy pink man, that pink man.
Yeah,
in the way that it's all set up.
I very much appreciated the pink man.
It goes back to, you asked me on that previous episode, the depth for the fifth element, the depth of, the worlds that can exist, and that's a good example of that, isn't it? It's like
it is.
It's like here we are with these characters on their journey, and then hang on, here's a prisoner, the pink man in a weird glass, and
was
his punishment.
Was he a prisoner?
Yeah, he was a prisoner.
Because the guy said, "Oh, this prison is a strange way of execution," and the fellow said, "No, when something about they choose to die, they come down. We got him like this, and they come down here, left to die like."
I thought it was that he's a prisoner and this is his sentence. And because he said, we get paid to bring him here and punish him.
Yeah,
That was my.
We're gonna have to look. I'm gonna have to read back over that script because I heard him talk about strange punishment, and the other fellow was indicating that it's tradition. So,
well, Christopher Caldwell and Zeek Earl, who are out there listening. Hopefully, to this podcast.
I know they are. I feel it in me waters.
I feel that they're going to tune in to this special Space Brains about their film, and they could clarify that for us. That's why we love having those chats with the directors and the writers, don't we, Surrey?
I want to know about the pink man.
We want to know about the pink man.
Yes.
That's the number one question from your number one takeaway.
Number one takeaway, there are pink men on green moons.
So your interpretation is that it's something that he's dying. My interpretation is that's his punishment. That's the prisoner. They've been sent there.
It's covered in pink. But he had like a ceremonial mask on and everything.
Yeah. No, I'm standing by my interpretation.
Okay, well, there we go. Yeah, in that sense, is this a hope, warning, or an experiment?
Total warning. This is it's almost a horror film, isn't it? Like, in a way, that that the father... It's a good old-fashioned warning in that the father just chooses greed over survival. And so if he... Because there's literally... So the daughter's called C, and she actually literally, after they get that first gem, she says, oh, let's go back to the lander, their ship, and get the hell off here, right? And they even discuss how much that gem would be worth. And he sort of says, oh, it'd be enough to like pay the debt down, but not really get us anywhere, right?
Yeah, wouldn't get back to Central.
We wouldn't get back to the good part, right? But she's like, no, let's go. But he decides to push on, and guess what? Greed. There is always karma for greed. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, straight away, I'm almost thinking, oh, this is like a horror in that, it's like you've committed a sin, greed,
it is,
and therefore you're punished.
It's a horror because you can't say it's about hope, really.
No, it's not hope.
There are hopeful elements in here about people helping each other.
And getting out.
And that sort of thing, but... The theme is not hope.
No,
it is actually a little bit dark. She loses her father. Her father was already on the way out.
Yeah.
She had previously lost her mum.
Yeah.
She had no home. She'd learnt that she didn't have a home.
Yeah, she didn't have a home.
And yeah, so it's not bright. Is it in that way, sort of that horror, in that you're getting an increase of bad emotion? I don't know. Is there a better disaffection? I don't know if that's the right term. But experiment, it's not entirely an experiment either. It's an exploration of, vengeance, greed.
Which then maybe it's not a horror, but it's a Western, because those things are all Western things, aren't they? Like greed and vengeance. And it also being, quite often Westerns, it is a bit of a dark... it's a emotionally broken world.
It's that sort of frontier.
We're at the end of the line.
Yeah,
things aren't going well.
Bleak loneliness.
Bleak, yeah.
A lot of the times you have the hero of the Western wandering through these plains of Utah or Oklahoma or Oregon or whatever, which like sort of there's some trees and some grass, but not a lot.
No.
And you can see they're wearing like heavy warm clothes.
Yeah.
This is not a hospitable place, and they're all by themselves.
Yeah, and that's the whole point, right, of a Western, is that they are out all alone somewhere, and they've kind of got to work it out for themselves in a way. And
this also made me think back to what one of our listener peoples said about why they liked Firefly and Serenity.
Yeah.
Because Firefly and Serenity are mentioned as being sci-fi westerns. And they've got similar sort of feels to this. The level of technology, the way it's clearly advanced, like they're traveling to other planets. But at the same time, it looks like, 60s era space technology.
Yes.
Some of the spacesuits looked like straight out of the picture of the cosmonauts from the Russian, missions to circle the planet, and
they were quite crude, weren't they? Like
and the lander they were in would look like an 80s set.
It did.
And that's what this. What was his name? Sean David Burke. He said, he invited us to the Little Planet
Expo Festival, film festival,
which we're going to again later this year, which is cool. And he said he really liked that sort of gritty realism where if you want to get somewhere, you've got to work for it.
Yeah.
And that's a real Western feature that's in this movie.
Yeah.
They want to get off the planet. There's not just like a nice luxury liner there or a teleporter to beam them up.
They have to negotiate their way off the planet.
They've got to cut arms off. They've got to, deal with possibly acidic or explosive things that are not explained.
Yeah.
But
and mercenaries and the locals, it's got all those traits of a Western. Really, this is the thing. It's just on a faraway planet.
Yes, pretty much. Good old fashioned.
So that's why it's a warning.
Warning.
What was your favourite scene, Surrey?
Well, thank you very much for asking, Mark. My favourite scene My favourite scene was when C and Damon, her dad,
Yep.
come across the old prospecting dig, and there's like a couple of long dead prospectors lying there.
Dead.
And Damon mentioned something about, they dove in, they're amateurs.
Yeah, amateurs.
And at this point, you're not really sure what they're doing. Like the movie's called Prospect, and they said they come here for a job.
Yeah.
It's not really told what it is. You figure they're getting some sort of resource.
Yeah.
And there's this lump on the ground, and he cuts it open, and it's all biological and gooey. And he pulls out that little sack, and then it's like cutting the umbilical cord. Again, they might say, "Oh, do you want to cut it?"
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
I'll cut it.
It had that same feeling of like a birthing.
Yeah, and there was like a little. I reckon there was a little nod to Alien there. Yeah, because it felt like that. It felt like when what's his face does the dissection of the alien, the face hugger.
Yeah.
That same sort of like, it was a bit clinical, a bit careful. Oh, cut in the middle. No, cut in the middle, Yeah.
Yeah, so he carefully cuts it, and he explains as he's going to his daughter, you got to cut around these cysts, because if you pierce one of those, the cadmium acid or something like that will dissolve the whole lot, and cut it open. Now you got to wash it. Oh, don't spill that, because if you get that on the flesh, you'll explode. I'm wondering, what on earth is this thing? What's the fluid that they're using? They wash it, and they wash it away, and they pull out a gem, which looks kind of like a diamond. It's already cut. Yeah. With a bit of amber inside of it. Yeah. And this is where C goes, oh, this is, she looks at it in wonder, and her dad says, oh, it's probably worth $7,000-$10,000, And she said, oh, that's enough to pay off our debt and, and the rent on the land, and get us back to, some station or other. Yeah, yeah. But that scene, it was so interesting.
It was.
It was like this intricate little surgical procedure and multi-step process, which you can understand now why this place hasn't just been strip mined, because it clearly requires surgery. Yeah. And careful skill, and it's dangerous.
But I think that was also clever, because even if you connotate that to the Western, and I've looked into a bit of history here in Australia. We had the big Caldwell gold rush and surrounding towns. It wasn't ever as simple as that sort of perception sometimes of like, oh, you just go out there and like dig and, oh, I found a gold nugget. It took a bit of patience. It took like, oh, you might hit a vein. And even when you hit a vein, you got to know like when to maybe blow up rock and when to dig it, and then what's safe and what's dangerous. And, and they used all sorts of different sort of tools. We can have this perception of the little gold miner, panning for gold kind of idea in the river, and it's all fun and games. But there was all this, and I know that it's not science fiction, but that movie, There Will Be Blood, with Daniel Day-Lewis as the lead actor, I mean, that film goes through a lot of that process and sort of shows you that time and error and some of the realities of someone exploding like a gas mine or something accidentally, and dying, and and that's the thing here. I really liked that they did go to such attention to detail, because it made it feel like, why isn't there just a huge mining company digging up and all this sort of stuff here? It's like, oh no, this is like something that requires almost a surgeon to perform.
Yeah, it was tricky. Yeah, and of course it sets up the scenes later on, and it does. It gives us our redemption moment for C, where we realise that she's, she wants a place to belong. Yeah, she just wants to go home, but she found out in one of the early scenes that she doesn't have a home. Yeah. But she still wants that, and she talks later on about that book that she's rewriting from memory. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And adding little scenes in there, fan fiction.
Twilight.
She's doing a fan fiction, Twilight. Where she wants to just spend time on this freighter with these friends.
Yeah, yeah. She just wants to be a teenager.
That's all it is. She clearly has no friends. Yeah. And so this scene sort of captures her motivation, her desire, but also the fact that she's sort of paying attention, and we get that redeeming quality of well, we could just, this is heaps. This will get us back, and all the rest of it.
It's to save the cat in terms of that she's not greedy. She's happy. Like, why don't we take this, clear our debt? We don't have to work anymore. Or, we can just sort of start afresh.
You can
and for most of us, that sounds pretty cool.
You can also see that she's not, she's a teenager, but she's not just kind of mopey and, like a cliche.
No, not at all, yeah.
She's smart, motivated. She's got an interest in something.
Yeah.
So it was a really good scene for summing all of that up. And having a bit of that relationship between... it seems a bit of a distant relationship between her dad and her.
Totally.
Presumably, because of the loss of the mum. And, probably
and his drug abuse.
Probably mum was lost in his efforts to find their fortune, and now all he can think to do, I think, at the moment is try to find fortune, for her daughter, his daughter, because...
Let's be wanky, sorry. He's searching for fortune in all the wrong places.
Yeah, sort of slimy muckholes.
That's right. Yes, I like that. Yeah,
Yes.
I do like that. Well, I liked this attention to detail, didn't you? Like this filtered air.
I loved the fact that it was a planet covered in greenery.
Yeah.
But they had to wear suits.
Yeah. So I really liked, and we even have a moment where there's these weird puffy things, they're like...
Farting. Reminded me of the Labyrinth. You've seen the Labyrinth?
Yeah.
The bog of eternal stench?
Yes. And it was just like, they were just like puffing out this toxic plume. And again, you didn't 100%... I think what this film did well at times is it didn't over-explain things. So you just... it's like, the land is there. Like, when they landed, we didn't know why they were landing.
No.
And then the atmosphere is weird, and the father says to her, he goes, you've got the better filter. And then later even what's the other guy's name?
Ezra.
Ezra even says like, my filters, I need a new filter, so it's like, you presume, but they don't totally just say, the air is toxic,
There's a couple mentions of dust.
There's a couple mentions of dust, yeah. But I also liked that the filmmakers committed to having this weird filtering of toxic plume in this beautiful forest and stuff. Like you said, greenery everywhere.
And no animals.
No animals. There was no creatures, no
birds
monsters. I kept expecting like a monster at some point.
That puffing, farting things, I thought it was a pig.
Yeah.
Because it sort of sounded like a grunting thing, and she walks around with a gun. It was just, a couple farters.
Yeah. But it gave me a claustrophobic feeling. And I think combined with the fact that these guys had these 1970s or 60s awful space outfits, it was like, it didn't give me a lot of confidence.
No, it was all a bit sort of grubby, but I think also what these spacesuits did is it added that separation between them, because you couldn't see the shapes of their bodies moving properly.
Yes.
So it's just kind of these rough bags with limbs coming out, walking about the place and moving.
And then also on top of that, they're like they had to be attached. It was like really old school, wasn't it? They attached to each other through a hose.
They had to share their filter.
Yeah. Which is a little bit like it's sort of like harking back to those, the old. Scuba diving kind of kits that like the guy goes down and he's got the heavy suit.
The helmets were like
and the
that.
pipe. Yeah, it was.
And those mercenaries, they each had a different suit on,
set up.
One of them was quite a deep sea dive looking one, but it also reminded me of like a prison break in a Western movies, where they're shackled together. And they escape the chain gang, but they're shackled together. They've got to find the blacksmith that cracked the.
That's
thing.
right.
And so these two were sort of
stuck together
like this, yeah.
Would you dig for the gems or escape as quickly as you could?
Oh, man, I guess...
Would you put your hand in these oozy-goozy tree roots?
Well, there's just there's so much money, apparently, that they're worth.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Would you go for the money?
Well, if I was already there, yeah. Make it worth my while to get off.
It would.
I don't know if I'd go work with those mercenaries. That sounds bloody dangerous. But I can see the guy's point. I've felt this way myself sometimes in the past. When shortly after we first moved over from Melbourne to Western Australia, there was a period there where we did not have as much money coming in as money was going out.
Yes.
And it was getting down to the, literally
bare butt.
selling the motorbike, selling the shares, selling off assets.
Everything, yeah.
In order to maintain, because we were month to month, for a bit of a while there.
Yeah.
And if not for the kind-hearted nature of some friends and family and things, we probably would have had to. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what would have happened. Move out of the house and sell it and all the rest of it. So I can understand that this. And at that time I kind of had that feeling of like I've got to just do anything to make enough money.
Yeah. That
we're not. This is first world problems. I would say, like, I was never really going to be destitute because we had a house that we were living in. Like, the bank had a mortgage on it, but we could have sold that, and we had
at the end of the day,
we had good friends and family and stuff. It really wasn't that big a deal, but it's still quite stressful, and you still do consider, like, how do you get away with arson?
Yeah.
Now, if the house is insured, and it would be enough to pay out the mortgage, and that would still leave us with a block of land we could then sell for profit. And so you don't seriously consider it, but you do kind of understand that notion of at what point do I get desperate enough to go to this planet where you've only got 3 cycles, presumably that's sort of 3 days, to get on there, deal with some who are going to be bloodthirsty, dangerous mercenaries, to get possibly millions of dollars, whatever that, millions of currency, whatever they're talking about there.
Yeah.
Like you would say that there is going to be a point where you consider that.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt for the guy there.
Yeah, definitely.
I've come out of that stage there. I've sort of got myself a nice job, and the kids have grown up a bit more, so they're not quite so demanding of time and so forth. But there was certainly definitely a stage there where I was considering like doing fly in, fly out work. I was thinking, my uncle does training up on the mine sites. He can train me up on something like, because he did this for my brother, and then I'd be able to land a high paying job there. Fly in, fly out, it'd be kind of shit, but
yeah, if you do it, you do it.
You do it, and this is similar.
Yeah,
harder, but he obviously that guy got pushed to that point where he went, nah, okay, go down there, and I think he basically sort of was it the sunk cost fallacy. He'd already ventured so much and lost so much that he figured he just had to venture a bit more.
Yeah.
Because he has to make back on what he'd previously done. So, yeah, poor guy. I in that circumstance, I can totally understand the reasoning for it.
Yeah, definitely.
And what about... so that's sort of some of the motivations there and some of the gems and things. But what about the science fiction? You like a bit of the science fiction? What is science fiction in this film that gets you going?
Well, look, I was going to talk about that whole cutting of the gem thing that you just because I did love that too. But I think it's the science fiction bit I like in this is the fact that it's ancient. We're in the future, we're in the distant worlds. We're off in some freaking solar system that doesn't exist, as far as we know. But the technology that they're working with and all of these devices, like we said about the spacesuits, it's the same at the start of the film. Like, they're on this rotating satellite thing, and when they get in the lander and that, all the switches are old. They're old buttons, and the screens are like, one color. They're not even very accurate. They're kind of like blurry sometimes. They malfunction badly. And in fact, even when the lander malfunctions, the good old fashioned puff of smoke.
Yeah, it's a little puff of smoke.
But it's like
not very spectacular, but effective.
No, effective, the machine. But it's I mean, personally, I like it because we watched something like 2001, which I absolutely love, and that was made, in that era, and so therefore Kubrick, etc., they're working off what they've got in front of them. We watch something like Passengers, and it's a futuristic spaceship. So it's got, it's taking our society now, right, and blasting it into the future. But so you take a film like this, which is 2018, and they could, we have these little computer chips in our phones and stuff like that we walk around. We can watch 4K on our phone or whatever, right? So you imagine, in the future, well, no, they're going to be on a spaceship with little tiny screens that are really clear and but But no, like the science fiction bit I like in here is that the technology, it's kind of like it's stuck in the 1960s or 70s.
It adds to that frontier feeling because in the 1800s, when you're talking about gold rushes, say California or in Ballarat or whatever, like you see the beginnings of Ballarat. It was a tent city, so like these rough canvas tents, and the people were wearing, rough canvas clothes.
Yes.
But if you took yourself down to Melbourne or London or someplace, the people were wearing suits, and they were just sort of starting to tinker with steam engine and automobiles. Things were starting to...
So it's the crudeness of the frontier, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of modernity that you could recognise. They had gas lamps to light the streets. They had plumbing, but out on the frontier where the gold rushes were, they were living in, shacks and shanty towns, and they were wearing, rope belts and Hessian sacks with their hole cut out of them, I expect.
Yeah, so I agree. So that's a really good way of putting it, is that idea of being on the frontier and what that looks like, and what that feels like, that we're not necessarily in some high-tech, paid-for spaceship. We're in a real working, industrial... And, I mean, you know this, and I know with my brother-in-law he's been working in a factory in a particular department. It's an old factory. He's the only one there because the whole thing is... remotely controlled, but he's had to go work at this factory for a particular project. And but the thing is, you go into that factory and the switches are the old switches. So everything in this factory is remote controlled, like someone in IT and stuff can operate it from a distance, remotely, whatever, even probably from another state, another country. But like the switches are the same as in this movie. They're those old-fashioned switches, like turn them on, turn them off, like manually.
Clunky switches.
Like because the machinery has continued to operate, like the switch works.
Yeah, exactly.
So business doesn't come in and swap it. So you can imagine that in outer space, like if we, Elon Musk, SpaceX, you get out there, it's like, we're trying to save a bit of money, right? We're trying to save a bit of money. So maybe the monitor isn't 4K. Yeah, maybe the monitor is like some old green 1980s
Well, there's something to be said about reliability as well, because you get yourself my phone, I dropped it on the ground, it's cracked. It's got some cracks in it. So, if you need something that'll be a little bit more rugged, then you maybe need a plastic screen instead of a nice clear glass screen. Yeah. And that's going to get a bit cloudy. Yeah. And instead of trying to go with, 32 million colours, variations in your RGB, just go 2 colours with nice big fat pixels that
everyone can see.
They don't get damaged, and it's easy.
And look, to be honest, I don't know like a Boeing 747 for a captain. Like, I mean, how crude is that actually in there? Like, I've never been in one. I don't know.
I think some of them probably are.
Yeah.
Crude. Some of them are probably quite, fancy with nice screen and stuff. But again, in aircraft, you're looking for reliability.
You are.
Well, it's the 737. But
depends which company's behind it, I suppose.
In general terms, you're
safety,
looking for
reliability.
You're looking for reliability, and if a manual toggle switch
rather than a touch screen,
works, for 50 years without damage in braking, you go with that.
That's very true. So anyway, that was the science fiction that I liked. What about, was this the first time you'd seen the film Surrey?
No, this was the second time I saw this film. So the first time
not a virgin.
Was with my wife, and it was just a Saturday evening. The kids were at Nana's, and we was like, we're just going through...
Date night movie, sounds like.
We had only just recently got Netflix, relatively speaking, and so we were like, all these movies, like, never even heard of them. And so we got stuck in there, and we this was one of the ones we watched.
Excellent.
And certainly well worth watching again, especially with additional eyes from Space Brain's point of view. It's very good. Yeah, very good. And so this time I watched it on my phone and partially on my computer. Yeah. But the first time was in the lounge room. And yourself? First time?
This was the first time for me. Yeah, I randomly picked this one. So, yeah, and I just watched it on the big screen at home, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Like it sucked me in. You know what I mean? And I those elements that we're talking about in terms of like I liked the father character. I liked the science fiction of it being old and weird. Them not really telling us what was going on this planet. You know, that scene you just talked about, the surgery to get the gem out. I was like, oh, this is... Like, it kind of kept getting deeper and deeper. And it also, I just felt for the daughter so much, you know, like, and we'll get into the plot, but it kind of like, it really... Because it... You know what? I tell you what, I'll just say this right now. Like, I really liked the fact that at the opening bit, she's got those cool headphones.
Oh, they're very cool.
You know, like
very
they're
almost
awesome.
Steampunk, bronze.
Yeah, you know, like they're very punk rock for the fact of the world she lives in. They're not these sophisticated earbuds. And that sucked me in. And the fact that she was playing music, you know, like it kind of straight away said, and then kind of developing into her dad's obviously never gotten over his wife, mother of her, dying, and and so he's a bit of a druggie. And so straight away it's like, well, you know, you and I are dads. You don't get to do that. I don't think as a dad, you have to be there for the kid. That's my stance.
Oh, look, I've got a little stash there waiting for when Pip dies. I'm going straight into it.
There's nothing wrong with maybe binging if something that severe happened to you, but I guess at the end of the day, you're still their dad, and you have to kind of like be their dad.
Yeah, I'm feeling
like it was like he'd given up on. And I've seen other movies and I've read other stories like, you know, the parent has given up and the child becomes the parent, and that was this example. And they did that very clearly when he does take the drugs, and he kind of reveals to her that she was born on this planet, but they don't belong. They don't have a home there or anything.
They're just on holidays.
She was like, "Oh, tell me more," and he's like, passing out. You know, it's like, and then she like tucks him in and stuff, right? And she puts his drugs away nicely. And it wasn't like I think the thing was these drugs. We see that picture later of the head and the rainbow above the head. It's like, no, these are probably prescription drugs, or you know, they give them out freely.
Knocked him out pretty quickly.
Yeah, they knocked him out pretty quickly. So it's not necessarily like it's like he's on heroin or doing anything totally dodgy, but he was a distant parent. You know, he wasn't being the dad anymore. She was more the mum to him than and that always, to me, it's like you feel for the kid because she's just a kid. You know, yeah.
But I also see it and I think, oh, I wish my kids would tuck me in a bed.
Yeah, I do too. I agree.
Make me... Actually, they did make us do it the other night. That's pretty good.
But this that's good. I've never had that going. I can't even get my kids to do the washing.
Tacos.
Well, that's fine. Can I get my kids to do tacos?
Just chopped lettuce and tomato, grate some
See,
cheese.
your oldest is a girl. She's, you know, fine motor skills, some of those, you know, self-independent. You know, when you have boys, they just don't know what the fuck they're doing, do they really? You know, they just...
I still don't.
Until they're like, until they're like 30 maybe.
Left to my own devices, I'll open a can of beans.
Yeah,
not baked beans, just beans. And just like wash them. And put some sprinkle of salt on. That's it. You're waiting for more though. Like, yeah, there we go. That's
I still remember like early in my relationship with my wife, like, and this is just me, no kids, like if she went out for the night, my dinner, even though I could actually cook other meals, but when it was just me, it was like, piece of steak, corn.
That's it.
Done. I was just like, why? But I like that. Like, I like that. But it's just, talk about westerns, isn't that like a western? There's like a piece of meat and some corn on the cob. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I know.
And a beer or something. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm good for the night.
Yeah, so we just got to get ourselves... Can you... Like, they tried to buy that girl because mum was dead.
Yeah.
Can you...
In the movie. Just to give it a bit of context.
In the movie. Can you... they're called butlers, aren't they?
Yeah.
I was going to say, can you pay someone to come and like tuck you in at bed and cook your dinner?
You can pay that. Yeah, you can.
You can.
Yeah, so just take 5% of the Space Brain's income and put it towards a butler. It'd be easy. Totally affordable.
I'll have to save it for a robot butler in that case.
Yes, a butler that is a robot. And in fact, that's not been invented, so you just make the butler dress as a robot. You know?
Okay, so we talk about this. This is a bit of a sci-fi. There's a bit of a western, but is this sci-fi or do we get a new genre classification out of this one?
I think sci-fi because, look, there's spaceships, there's alien planets, there's creatures, there's a world that we don't know. However, it to me is an old-fashioned Western.
It is
the frontier. I think we've already probably covered this now that I'm thinking about, but we're out in this oblique setting. Even though it's a nice green forest, it's all foggy because of the toxins. She's on her own. There's really violent standoffs as well. There's a lot of, there's a lot of drama that's unfolding. And then when you have these, and Westerns have that, it's like drama, bang. There's like a shootout, between 2 or 3 characters. And this film does that, Ezra and the father, like when they have that standoff, the two of them die, right? The two of them just shoot each other dead. There's a violent, when they see the locals, they want to like buy her. And so it's like a violent fight to the death, to get away. And then Ezra himself cutting off the arm, there's like whenever there's the standoffs, there's a real violence, which is very common for Westerns.
Yeah, there's that payoff, which is the release of tension through... Yeah,
violence.
Something a bit gruesome.
Yeah, and also even just digging... It reminded me a fair bit. It's funny. It's got... if you're out there and you're listening, you want to really have a go at me, go for it on social media. Let me know that I'm wrong. But Let There Be Blood, which I mentioned before, there's some similarities in this film with that. And that is a film about like a man that becomes really rich from finding oil. But there is some similar scenes, I could see some similarity going on, and that's set in the old days, finding oil in America and the evil things that he does. It's a great film, that one. Not at all science fiction, but it reminded me of that. So I feel like they tapped into this idea of prospecting and finding gold and the dirty deeds that you need to do to kind of... That's another thing with Westerns. It's like people taking land away from the locals, and maybe someone else I'll kill you, and then I get your land. And it's kind of like all its own jurisdiction. There's no law. There's no police. There's no, there's no sort of like justification for it.
It's almost like it's the Wild West.
It's lawless. There. Lawless. That's the word, isn't it? Loosey goosey.
Lawless.
That's what we're talking about with Prospect. But just on a little side note, have you been up to anything creative? Have you got your little book going on? What's going on?
Yeah, this morning I went through... I told you I finished this Hansel and Gretel. Yep. I've read it through, and I quite like it.
It's tickling you?
It's nice. It was hard to write because it ends a bit, grim.
Oh, but what we're talking about here.
But it's inspired me a little bit to go on a bit forward. But I've gone then, going through my planning notes that I wrote for it beforehand.
Yeah.
And I found a couple of things that I'd forgotten to include in there. And when I read them, I went, oh, I should definitely include... Like, I was really smart to have this recurring symbol.
Yep.
And so I managed to chuck that in there. So I'm just going through the last little bits. It's almost ready for someone else to read. So that's really cool. But it's also inspired me... I was talking about coming up with some sort of a show pitch or something.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm thinking this world would be quite good for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so just have to...
So Netflix, if you're out there, Surrey's ready to pitch to you in a couple of months.
Yeah, Netflix in a couple of months.
They're looking for Australian content, Netflix Australia, so, it's time to step up.
Yeah, I don't know how necessarily Australian... It's a bit Australian.
No, but as long as it's made in Australia, that's what counts.
Oh, yeah.
Australian crew, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I've defined any particular place, Western world.
Yeah.
But that's about it. But yeah.
Awesome.
Definitely science fiction because it's got these big tall towers and...
Yeah, you've spoken a lot about it. I'd like to read this.
It's interesting. Watching The Fifth Element with, the big towers there, I realised that there's similarity there. There's the same concept of at some point in the story of the main character, he sees this stairwell. He almost gets thrown down these stairs and they disappear downwards. And the guy pushing him down there says, most people don't realise this, but these things go down almost as far as they go up.
Yeah.
So you see them going up above the clouds into the clear sky.
Yeah.
They drop down. And
I like that
people
idea.
who go down there, we don't see again.
Yeah.
And so then there's this character walking away. He's looking at this building. He sort of sees a shadow around the base, and he's thinking, are we even on ground level?
Yeah.
Or has someone just built pavement across here? And then you're up in the clouds, of course, you can't see what's above the clouds.
Yeah. Are
they actually clouds? Or has someone built across there and you're sort of seeing the steam and condensation up there. Yeah, so I really like that idea, and
Multiple layers, levels.
That will form part of this conflict, a bit of this sort of Elysium. I guess the 3%. This idea that the elite live way up there.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we believe, and there's this sort of stratification. Character thinks they want to get up there, but then they want to help their friends. There'll be a bit of a hint to show that they are paving over. That in fact, some of the towers are starting to be joined together high up. And there's this concern of we're just going to be paved under. There's going to be a new layer.
Yeah.
And we're at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of adventures and thrills there and groups and interactions to be had.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to reading that.
That'd be exciting.
Yeah, terrific.
Yeah, well, it'll be available later on in the next year.
Awesome.
Because we're only about a few weeks off now.
Yes, we are.
How about you?
Well, yeah, I think I said last time it was like I figured out my themes and stuff, so that's great. And I'm working on a couple of short scripts. So that's something that's coming. I think the project for next year would be to probably produce 2 short films. So that's all in the planning stage at this time of year again with Christmas and stuff. But I want to push ahead from that. And then, the other thing is just this local Mandurah network that me and another guy have started, and just a little bit of fruits coming out of that already, which is great. A few connections, and I just want to kind of also push that ahead a little bit more as well. So, nothing as deep or specific as what you're talking about, but just kind of. A few things burning and a few things starting to have feed and a few little murmurs.
And your film got into another festival?
The Memory got into another festival, the Kalakari, I think, film festival, off the top of my head.
Where's that?
India.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's funny. It's had, and I've had some rejections. So I think now we're at 5 acceptances, 1 award. And 6 rejections.
So the award, that was the Cannes Film Festival?
Yes, of course.
Or was it Sundance?
Both, I think, actually.
Both.
I think it was like they just couldn't decide. They just both gave it to me, yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't enter. I did not enter either of them because I felt the memory didn't quite meet their criteria, actually, to be honest. But I will say on a side note, as a filmmaker, the festival experience has really, taught me, and I'm going to bring in the lessons from that into producing the next short film, etc. Because it will make some decisions. Because the memory itself it could be triggering to some people. It's also not necessarily R-rated, bleak and that, but it could be R-rated in some people's brains because it's a bit sort of triggering because it is about sexual assault. So I've learnt that, maybe the film festival circuit's not necessarily the best for a film on that topic. You want to go for something that's a little bit more lighthearted or a little bit more open-ended,
philosophical.
So it's interesting because a couple other ideas, the ones I'm working on, they are more, one's a time travel one and one's a bit more of an obscure character-driven story, but they're not dark and edgy like the memory was.
No.
So they might do better at film festivals because of that. So that's kind of been my lesson from the festival circuit. It's its own game, the festival circuit.
No, you can't divorce the business side from the art.
No, and when we spoke to Luke Spark, him talking a lot about that, hoping that Occupation would get a cinema release because of the
Rainfall did. It
looks like it has, yeah.
Rainfall's going to be in cinemas.
Yes, excellent.
Australia-wide, fantastic.
Yes. We should send him a thank you, actually, shouldn't we, for that?
Yes.
So, so let's get into it a little bit more, some of the details and the plot. Let's breeze through some of those parts. So we are talking about Prospect 2018, written and directed by Christopher Caldwell and Zeek Earl. These guys have worked together on a few projects.
A number of short films.
Commercials. This film as well is connected to the Dust science fiction
Science fiction
channel on YouTube. Which
it is the Dust channel.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure because it said by Dust, and I wasn't sure it was the same Dust.
So there's a connection that way. I think I was reading that they then also did there's like a production house that's come out of Dust that made this film, but it is sort of under the umbrella of Dust. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Christopher and Zeek could clear that up for us if they created Dust or not. I'm not sure. I kind of looked into it a little bit, but I didn't go deep down the rabbit hole. But maybe they could clear that up for us, or anyone out there could clear that up for us. But it is under that Dust, which is an awesome resource if you are into science fiction. Dust.
You should check that out. The production quality is top notch.
And they're constantly got new content up there from filmmakers all over the world. Animation, stop animation,
computer generated
stuff, and then obviously actors. They've got some great, little short films, longer pieces. I think this film was also, they did this as a short and then they've made it into a feature. So it's kind of, again, that example I've heard from other filmmakers of kind of giving little tasters of what a film would look like.
Cargo,
as a short.
Cargo we covered before was
Cargo
a
did
short
that
film.
As well, and so that's a common strategy. It's like they almost make a short to show that this is what the feature would look like and feel like and all that kind of stuff. So these guys did do that with Prospect. I haven't seen the short. It'd be interesting. Probably should go back and have a look at it. And so it does star Sophie Thatcher. She plays C, the teenage girl, lead character. Jay Duplass plays Damon, or the father. And Pedro Pascal plays Ezra. So we start with C, and we've got this young teenage girl. She's moping a little bit around this space station with her awesome headphones.
What I loved,
and she's listening to this kind of weird futuristic rock music.
Because what I loved is it starts off with that outside. You're looking outside, and there's this romantic view of the space and the planet, the moon, and there's it's a close up of her next to the porthole. So you always get the feeling of like a cruise or you've seen these ISO shots where people had the toilet seat and the photo of it. So they take a close up, it looks like they're sitting on an aeroplane, but they're not. It's the same thing. So it did that, and then when it came in with this music, you sort of get this feeling as if this is flying through space on something really cool, and it pulls out, and you see that she's huddled just in a little beam of light from this moon in a very industrial tramp steamer.
And it seems to be just rotating as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's not exactly going anywhere, I don't think.
No.
But I loved the fact that she was playing that music in those awesome headphones. That's such a standout. I don't know who came up with that. I love it. Anyway, she's on this space station with her dad, Damon, who's drugged up. He's a bit nasty to her. He's a bit what you and I were talking about before, about being quite direct and forefront in what she needs to do and what he needs to do, and even maybe a bit depressed. I'm not too sure, but they're not connected as a father and daughter should be, and it doesn't seem to be coming from her being a nasty teenage girl. It's more coming from him.
Yeah. They get the announcement. They're going to get the
announcement.
Drop off.
Yep.
But this is the end of the line. So, and he acknowledges and says, "Yep, we'll see you on this sling in 3 cycles."
Yep.
And so they go through the little checklist. He pulls out his little ring binder book, and see displays her skill here. The fact that she's not just a mopey teenager. She's writing in her little notebook.
Yep.
She's flicking through the switches, and she's helping out with a checklist.
She's got her own little binder.
Yeah, and Dad sort of flicks a switch and a light doesn't come on. He flicks it a couple more times and taps it, and it comes on. Okay, no worries.
Love that.
So this is not high tech.
No,
I mean, it's high tech, but it's not cutting edge. It's not modern, as it were. And then they drop.
They do drop,
and it wasn't a very dramatic drop.
No,
it was just kind of down, a bit of a rumble, which was. I think that was a bit unexpected, a bit, they clearly weren't making a big deal, because a lot of these sort of movies with dropping into atmosphere, it's a big deal. It's drama and action. This was just almost, I don't know, every day.
Yeah, well, like it drops and it seems to be, it's quite peaceful. You know, there's a moment there and she can see the spaceship they've come from circling. And then there's like a bit of a ruckus. And he's like, it's atmosphere. And then that's when the puff of smoke kind of happens. And it's like, oh, and he's trying to fidget with the gadget. She tries to do a bit of gadgets. And then they just stop. And they've landed.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, yeah, that wasn't good. You know,
what was that?
We're off course and, you know, but... Yeah, but it's not like he's, you know, we've crash landed, I'm on fire, get out and jump in a lake.
The landing was not the drama.
No, the landing wasn't.
It was just introduction to the world. Yeah. There you are now.
And yeah, they had this technical malfunction, I think is actually the wording. So it's like, and so they look at the map and they realise that, and again, she looks at the map and she
find where we are. He says.
Find where we are, and she actually does that, and you can see on the map that they're a bit of a distance from where they should be. So anyway, they set off, and it's a good example of what I was talking about before with the costumes and the masks and the helmets all being
and that
funny
rifle. And the ammunition, you got to wind in a hand-cranked charging device.
And it's this long, you know, I mean, that's very Western, isn't it? It's very like old school weapon. Oh, that always happened there. So they set off and they enter this alien planet. And that's what I mean. I like that he says, oh, you've got the good filter, you know, like, you know, I've got the crappy filter or whatever. Yeah. And they go off and they've got these kind of old spacesuits. Anyway, they come across this abandoned dig site, as Surrey talked about earlier. There's a couple of dead bodies. C takes that all in. He immediately kind of steps into action. And what I also, apart from everything we talked about earlier, something that was pretty cool here as a character development was you saw that he knew what to do.
He knew his shit.
You know, like he explained each step of the way, but he understood what needed to be done, and you saw it done. It was like he was a surgeon. Like he cut here and do that, and he said, oh, you got to do that, and he was very fine. There's a moment there, he's like, if you cut this, that's when it all dissolves. And he didn't shake the knife or anything, he just kind of trimmed the head off a little bit on the side, and then he like peeled it back, and, you know, and it was an amazing scene, that one. Like, you got to give huge credit to the filmmakers for that, I think, because it was just such a, like, intricate layering of, like, what the hell is this guy doing?
I know, when I was watching this the first time, it was just, what's this? And he pulls out this sack, and I'm like, what the hell are they collecting?
What are you going to do this for?
And then he does another process, and you think, okay, and then another process, and finally it reveals a gem and you go, I understand now.
So they do that together, and it was good because you could also, in my mind, like, oh yeah, he's teaching her what every step of the way is, you know. Again, here it's like C says, oh, let's go back, but he chooses greed. He talks about the Queen's lair where there's more gems. Like here, this one's 10,000. We could go to the Queen's lair and it'd be like millions of points or whatever it was, the currency.
Dots.
And then they could really set up their life and go back to home. So they set off again. She very reluctantly, but he's good. And there's a moment that they're separated, and he warns her.
She's off getting more water.
That's right. He has to fill up the bladders. That's it. And he warns her via the speaker, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
a pretty cool effect in filmmaking, because then you've got one character off in the distance, and you can hear everything. So it's cool. And he's approached by two other prospectors. One is Ezra, and the other one is very silent, but they're brandishing weapons, and they start hunting through all of his stuff, and they're quite threatening, you know. And when it kind of gets to the point where Ezra is, well, I suppose he's going to kill him, right?
Yeah.
Damon pleads to sort of tell him, well, I'm here to go to these mercenaries. We're going to go to the Queen's lair. It's got millions of stuff. Why don't we just go and take it over? Like the three of us.
That big gun you got there.
You've got a big gun. I've got a gun. Like, you know, I know what I'm doing. The three of us do it. And
stagecoach is coming through at 3.
Yeah. So let's do it together. Like, we can all work together. Stuff the mercenaries. And so Ezra likes that, and they agree to that, and they walk off, you know, gun in hand. And like you said before, it's like they're kind of trapped to each other. Someone's always holding a gun on the other, which is very Western, isn't it? You know, like, you lead the way. I trust that you're going in the right direction. You lead, and I've got the gun behind you, you know? So anyway, C's been hiding, and so she kind of follows and follows. And with her dad, in a moment through the speaker, they agree, they'll do a bit of an ambush. There'll be a point like he'll stop, and I don't know if he says there's a code word or anything.
This is when I do something with his speaker.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to flick his speaker.
Give a little bit of a sign that now's a good time to do the ambush, you know. And they do. They get to this port where there's a big river or something, and they kind of sit down to have a rest, as you always do. And, Damon takes control of the situation quickly, and she ambushes them, so they're outgunned. There we go.
Got the guns pointing at him. It's a bit of a standoff here, but he makes the two guys sit down.
Yeah.
And they talk about this, and then Damon decides that he's going to relieve these two guys of their gems.
Their gems, yeah.
Which clearly is not something these people like.
No.
And the big silent guy jumps up and grabs his gun.
Yep.
And
Damon grabs his gun
shoots
and bang.
and C shoots, and the big guy and Damon are both shot and fall over backwards, leaving Ezra looking at C, sort of going, are you going to shoot me, or what's going on? And he realizes, no. And she runs off. She runs off. And then, Ezra hears Damon making some gurgling noises, so just sort of
takes him out.
Shoots him, executes him.
So she flees back to the lander, the damaged lander, and it's kind of like I like this scene because she kind of like gets in there and obviously takes a moment. But then I presume there was a bit of time that went by here. There's a bit of a montage of her going a bit crazy,
she's
a bit lonely.
To a bit of music.
She listens to music. She eats the food, but then she also throws the food against the wall. And she also then takes the drugs. Yeah. And it's that great little picture. It's like a matchbox, but it's like a picture of someone's head with like lights coming out of their head. Yeah. I really like that. It's very sort of like Japanesey, you know, like it looks very different, you know, and I liked that. And after she's having her binge and maybe thinking, well, this is it, I'm going to die, blah, 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 Ezra rocks up and forces his way in. And
she did try to take off just before, and
that's right. Yeah,
it's like it didn't work, and so she went, "Oh, okay," and that's when she eats and stuff. So she's got a broken lander.
Yeah.
Ezra turns up. She holds a gun at him when he comes on.
Yeah.
Shoots him in the arm, and he stumbles back and goes, "Ouch."
Yeah. She grabs his gun.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Well, you know, we can work together.
Give me a medical kit, or shoot me,
or kill me." You know. And she talks a lot about vengeance there, doesn't? Or he does, actually.
Yeah.
Like, vengeance can make you feel good, so just do it or don't do it. And so again, it's that theme coming up. She does pass in the medical, and they get he fixes himself. He puts puts a shot in and stuff, and then foam. Good old foam.
Expandy foam.
Yeah, expandy foam. So it foams up, and he's kind of like, he's in pain, but he takes some tablets, I think, as well, or something. And, but so it's like foamed up. He's a bit protected. He suggests that why don't they go ahead with the plan? He'll be the miner. You know, they can be the miners together.
Yeah, because they're going to need a way off the planet because the lander doesn't work, but the mercenaries must have a ticket.
They must have some way of getting off. And so she reluctantly does agree to that. As they're going along, they're walking in towards the mercenaries, this Queen's lair. Ezra's they're having discussions, and there's a lot of mistrust going on. Is the whole point of that? But Ezra's wound has now become infected by the air, the black. There's something like black,
sticky.
It sort of gets more and more sticky, and he's shaking a bit more. And they come across one random dude. And then he runs away, and he's like, oh, these are the locals. So they go to these locals, and they're like the local villagers. And they approach them, and they have to put their weapons away. It's the only way they're allowed to come in. And then they do come in, and there's kind of a tea drinking ceremony.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. And now my son will play for you.
Yeah, they play.
It's just like, okay. And he plays this little hurdy-gurdy thing. Yeah. About 3 chords or 4 chords.
Yeah.
and he stops, and you think, I was thinking that's a really crap song.
Yeah, and that's what C's face is kind of looking like, whereas Ezra's like, oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's
lovely.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
lovely. Thank you so much. And they give like a tea, and they're like, oh, that's lovely, drink it.
The
whereas C's like,
magic juice.
Yeah, magic juice. And then he's saying to them, well, I'd like, no, that's their juice. I think he's like, I'd like some magic juice for my arm.
Yeah.
Like, can we trade?
And
what
some
can
filters.
We do? Yeah, some filters. Can we trade? What can we do? And they come out and they put a big suitcase down in front, and he opens it, and it's a big pile of the crystals.
Yeah, it's like
gems.
So they found their first gem, which is about 10,000,
Yeah.
enough to pay off their loan and get them back to the space station.
And this looked like about 9 of them.
And then he's going to steal, from Ezra, probably about 3 or so of these gems. So
Yeah.
like a small fortune.
Yeah.
And this 9, 12, like it was in a
Yeah.
nice array of similar sized gems. You're thinking, okay, so now we're talking, that's serious money.
That's serious money. Yeah.
It's not millions, but that's like they were happy
Probably
to
a few
find that.
100,000 if we work off.
They were happy
sort
to
of
have just a
numbers.
couple of gems. They were killing over like
Yeah.
3 or 4 gems. And here they had like maybe 4 times that number.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, I don't understand. And they go, well, we'd like you to have this for C, for the teenage girl. Because we lost our mother and we basically need another woman.
Yeah. The funny thing I would have thought is as Ezra, and I think Ezra was thinking this like, I can't, how do I sell?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking to myself, would be like, okay, congratulations.
Yeah.
You have purchased, like, and then, like, what am I supposed to do in this transaction?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like, if you try to grab her, she's probably going to shoot you or punch you or something. Like, come on, this is not just. I don't have her in shackles, tied up, and stunned or lobotomized or something.
But it's another homage to Westerns, right? Because it's kind of that, like trading women, trading the tribal woman and
you get
stuff like that.
the trappers up in the mountains, and we ain't seen no women here for.
No.
Sorry, we ain't seen no women folk, because you got to call them women folk here in Manayan 3 hours.
Yeah. So it's that old, like, trading a woman sort of thing. But anyway, she fucking bolts. Good on her. I like that.
Right,
she just goes, okay, no worries. And she just runs through it. One of them chases her, but she managed to shrug them off.
Well, he lets her go.
Yeah, he does.
He holds the weapon or it is up to her, and then just kind of goes,
yeah,
and gets up and leaves.
Oh, she's a fighter, pup. She's a fighter.
Yeah, it's like,
she ain't gonna be no fun.
I think it was the young kid who's like,
kid.
Honestly, this is
just
weird.
Right.
It's just off your trot. My dad, he's not,
probably better for dad to die,
Yeah, it'd be better if it's like, we got to leave. There's no nightclubs here.
So anyway, then she sort of sees out there alone in the forest, and she sort of sees some of the scenery, and I guess a bit of time goes by again, and her filter is sort of on a red zone, which is never good, Surrey.
No,
it gets to
she's
the red
pushing
zone,
the red.
and she kind of looks not that great.
And we saw the big farting anuses.
We do see these great big, as you said, they sounded like pigs. They sounded like it'd be some sort of creature, but no, they're just these big farting buttholes. And she then gets a bit of a reception, weird, coming in voice, and so she heads towards the voice to get it clearer. And it's Ezra. It's saying something about, and then she spots this little tiny little. I don't know. It looks like a tent. Hunt thing.
It must have been a previous prospecting tent or something.
Yeah, something.
He said there's. If she goes in there, sure enough, it's Ezra. He's been trying to, make a help call. It's SOS.
Yeah, SOS.
And she goes in the tent, and there's like this nice little air filtery thing sticking in the middle, and he gives her like a chocolate bar. And says like there's cases of it in here.
Yeah.
So clearly someone left this. There's a previous rush. What do they call this? Acarite or something?
Yeah.
Gold
rush, basically.
There's a gold rush for this stuff. And there's the leftovers.
Yeah.
And so she has a bit of that, and then he's in obvious distress here.
Yeah, he's worse. His wound is worse. He's shaking more. He's sweating more. He's not doing well. And he tells her that, well, it's infected. We need to get rid of the arm. And it's a cool little device, isn't it? Like, it's like a Stanley knife, but it's electronic.
Yeah,
and
it's funny
got different settings.
It looked like it was just like maybe a scalpel or like a craft knife. It almost looked like it had like a 9-volt battery stuck inside of it. So it didn't look. Again, it looked like one of these something from the 1800s.
Yeah.
Brought into the future.
Yeah.
And there's like 5 settings on it.
Yeah.
I don't know what the 5th setting's for, because the 2 for flesh, 4 for bone.
Yeah, so what's next?
5 is for
I don't know.
whatever else you feel like cutting, I suppose.
So he again stabs himself with painkillers, I suppose, and takes some tablets and stuff. And she just begins hacking away. And she's really calm, and there's a point there. There's a great point where she's like, oh, can you feel that? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which is a great response, because he's kind of like wincing but not wincing. So
yeah,
the drugs are doing something, but maybe not completely.
I've done that. I had some stitches under local. And yeah, you can feel the tugging and the pulling, and you can feel it piercing your skin.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sting or anything. It's just it feels really gross.
And I had a procedure earlier this year that you were well and truly awake for, and they're like, "Oh, we give you," and I was surprised. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, put me out." And they're like, "No, we just give you kind of localized stuff. You won't really know what's going on." And you felt the protrusion of what the surgeon was doing, because you're awake, and the nurse is like talking to you. And they talk through it. I don't know why they have to talk through it all the time.
Just relax.
Just do it.
Just take it.
And now he's entering, and now he's doing... I don't need to know. I can't see it.
He probably shouldn't have taken that out.
Yeah, oops, he's gone a bit too far.
He's putting that back in.
He's putting it in, don't worry. Oh, he's putting his watch. Whoops.
He lost it. Doc, I think you had a watch. Oh, shit. Was it my good one?
He's going back in again. It's not normally like this. Now we are putting you out.
It's my good one. I better get it.
Yeah. Anyway, but I agree. I've gone through a couple of those minor operations where you're there and they're doing things to you, and you're like, well, And
I was very impressed by C's calm, because I even this time it's the second I watched it. Even then, I was sort of going, God, what is she? She's. How come she's doing that? Because I couldn't remember the little conversation afterwards.
Yes.
But it was just like, if she's really quite
She was
rugged.
very calm and collected, and he takes note of that. And I didn't quite 100% get what she says, but she's like, she used to harvest organs in a massive alien creature or something, and it would take an hour to wash the blood out of her hair. And so it's like, wow, what the hell was she doing?
When she was 12, she'd go inside there, and her mum and dad were harvesting something or others. Yeah.
I think she says harvesting organs from the so-and-so creature.
Yeah.
And it would take wow, so they'd send a 12-year-old into an alien
again,
body.
sounding very 1800s.
Yeah, it's really, really hard.
Dickensian, get the chimney sweeps up there.
Yeah.
You got a 12.
You're a 12-year-old.
You're a little 12-year-old. She can get the.
She can go up the
eggs unbroken.
That's right.
Ugh.
But it's cool. Again, that other world, hey, that's going on. The stuff that's happened. So anyway, he's lost his arm, and they set out once more to head to the mercenaries, and they arrive at this camp. There's not a lot of mercenaries. There's a little ship. There's the pink man in the glass cage.
Yeah, it's just a pink man. He's got don't know if that's, they said powdered pink, but I don't know if is he just that colour naturally? Did they spray him, or and he had
has he become pink because he's in the cage?
And he was in like this plastic box, and he had the mask on was ornamental.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. It wasn't like he was. But anyway, he's just
so you say that's funny. You say that, but my perception was Hannibal Lecter. Like it was like he was locked in. That was my perception. I thought that's how I took that scene. So I don't know. We've got two interpretations going on there. So let us know. Is Surrey right or am I right? Okay, let us know.
Is there another one?
Or is there another interpretation? Are we just idiots? People are going, they're pink because that's the way they're born.
He held his breath too long.
I know.
His face went red, the wind changed, and then his whole body went pink.
He's just sunburned, all right? He's sunburned. He's in the cage. These mercenaries are a bloody weird bunch, but I've got to say.
Yeah.
They're a hodgy-podgy. I said that last time. There's a bit like Fifth Element. There's a hodgy-podginess to this group of mercenaries, which I suppose mercenaries are. Like, you can even look at Predator. They're all kind of a bit unique in their suits and their armour and probably their skill set and what they're there for. We're introduced to kind of the leader, but also then there's this woman who like blasts music into their helmets, right?
Yeah, so they couldn't overhear her.
Yeah.
She spoke a weird ass language.
And it
sounded a bit like some of the words sounded Spanish. Some of it sounded a bit Russian. Some of it sounded, trying to pick out what language that was. So was it? I don't know if it was a real language. Maybe it was. Perhaps someone could enlighten me.
Yeah, and look, Ezra starts negotiating, saying, "Look, we're here. Sorry, we're late. The deal was 15 points. I tell you what, like, take a couple of points away. We want to leave. We want to get off the planet. And they talk a hard bargain. They're not interested in that. They're just interested in the 15 points. But eventually, kind of manages to pull off the standoff again. A bit Western-like.
Yeah.
You need us to do the tree route."
Yeah, you want the money.
If you want the money, you're just going to have to deal with it, and we're happy to lose a couple of points, So, and he did. He stood his ground enough, and they negotiate that. Anyway, so they go to the Queen's lair, and there's a mercenary standing watch, and they attempt to fulfill their end of the bargain by doing that procedure that we saw the father do. And Ezra does it 2 or 3 times and just fails.
Well, he's only got one arm, and it's not his right. It's not his right hand. It's his left hand. He's got.
And every time he kind of cuts the sap and it dissolves.
But these sacks they're pulling out were
huge,
many times larger. Like that one that impressed
Damon,
and Damon at the start, 10,000. This was that was sort of the size of like an orange or something.
Yeah,
these were more like pawpaws or something. Yeah, like this is almost like a football size sort of thing. You're thinking, wow, okay, yeah, and there's a lot of them in there. So this is a major
the Queen's lair.
That's a Queen's lair, all right, whatever that means.
So they all fail. It fails a few times. The mercenary starts getting a bit agitated, saying, "You can't do this." C has a go, and she kind of gets, further down the path, so to speak, of getting to the gem.
I know, and I thought she was going to do it.
And I thought she was going to do it, but then last second she kind of cuts it and it dissolves. So the mercenary, he throws his hand, you guys are useless, starts heading off. Ezra attacks him, fires the gun, kills him, but of course then the other mercenaries descend.
Brutally kills him by dissolving him in the...
Dissolving him into it. A couple of the mercenaries come running. He's like, he got greedy. He wanted a gem. And then they kind of look and go, I don't think so.
Yeah, they see the cut in the back of his
heel.
Yeah,
that's right. They're kind of they're suspicious, and they see that he's been cut in his foot. And so there's just basically a big old good old-fashioned gunfight.
Well, this is where C uses Chekhov's gun to escape.
Yep.
And that of course is that we were told at the start, we're shown that if that fluid touches the flesh, there's an explosion.
Yes.
And so sure enough, she's got the little fluid bottle there. She chucks in there. There's an explosion. It distracts them.
Explosion.
They run for it, and the smoke, they don't know where to shoot. And they get off into the trees.
They do. And then, so they're in the trees, and the woman with the music comes blasting along.
Yeah, she's a psycho.
She's just a psycho, she is, and she's speaking on.
You always have one psycho.
One psycho in there. They decide that Ezra and C, that they can kind of ambush her. So C will go off on one side, Ezra will kind of come out, and there'll be a good old-fashioned ambush. You notice that? Western. Which succeeds, and to the point that then when it's face-to-face, they never realised the psycho would have a little extra psycho. It's like she's got a samurai sword that she pulls out last second and just stabs it right through Ezra's chest or guts or whatever.
That really hurt.
And while he's being stabbed, he just kind of stabs her close range in the neck about a half a dozen times. It's pretty brutal, the whole thing.
He tries it a couple of times, just stab.
Yeah.
And she's still just there going him. And so
then he
ups the little... You hear the
whine go... because it is the same weapon, isn't it? He puts it up to cut the bone.
And then he really gets stuck in there. Yeah. And then finally she collapses. But he's messed up.
Yeah.
And C comes over and replugs them together and they talk.
Yeah, and he says, go, run away, which she does, but she actually goes and gets the medical thing, doesn't she? And then comes back.
Yeah, she first of all thinks someone's trying to shoot her.
That's right.
But it turns out he's actually trying to shoot the red dude. The pink dude is out of his box.
He's escaped. See, again, prisoner Surrey.
He's just trying to get to Valhalla. Bangs him over the head with a rock, and C sort of runs off back and...
With the medical kit.
Med kit and more foam on the arm.
More foam
on
in the
chest,
guts.
whatever it is.
Yeah, wherever it is.
Hooks him up to the filter and
takes
hobbles him out. The pink dude kind of looks at him for a bit and just kind of
I don't mind.
Shrugs and is like, whatever.
Whatever you guys want to do, go for it.
And I don't mind. What are you doing? Hey, guy. Take it easy. Put your feet up. Rest.
That's right. So he kind of, luckily lets them wander off, and they get into the mercenary spaceship and blast their way out. And we have this nice kind of repeating shot of when she descended with her father. Now they're ascending back up to the spaceship, and it's kind of the identical shot.
Yeah, we get nice.
And she smiles, like she's
glow,
like,
and they come back. I know, and this is where it is like it's not truly hopeful because they didn't get any gems.
No.
They didn't not even that first $10,000 one.
No.
Not even that box of them that Ezra had. No. As far as we know,
they're
nothing.
Just as worse off, except for the fact they survived.
Yeah, they survived.
They've got their lives.
They do. And, well, I guess also C made a friend.
Yeah, that's
like,
right.
This is
Ezra's...
someone who isn't her father that they've shared, difficult times. They've bonded a bit. Bit of respect.
Bit of respect for each other, yeah.
So she has a friend, which is funny because you think the next thing is they're basically going to have to go and do another one of these stinking jobs.
To get anywhere.
But
But maybe, the thing is versus her and her father, they will be like a partnership. And that will make them more successful. If the father had worked with
also,
her.
the thing is, I think she was mainly looking for friends.
Yeah.
Somewhere to belong. And, maybe she finds it hanging around these freighters. And Ezra, of course, he seems mostly armless. So you do get that, right? Yeah.
I think so.
Mostly armless.
Yeah.
Okay, I've explained it too much now.
You have over-explained it. So, what about the ladder? So, for me, this one is coming in at number 13 on my ladder of the rest of them. So, obviously, it doesn't include the classics. And so to give it a bit of context, Cargo, which we've mentioned a couple of times tonight, for me, Other Life is like number 11, Cargo is number 12, Prospect, that's the movie we talked about tonight, comes in at number 13, and then followed up by Anon is number 14, and the Beyond is number 15. So it's kind of right in the middle. I've got 35 that we've done now, Surrey, and then 10 classics. So, how about yourself? Where does this one come in on your ladder?
I've got this in, not too far from yours. A similar place I've got Other Life a bit above it. I've got The Thing below it, and Revolt. I was going, I quite like Revolt. That's the one where the dude wakes up in Africa without his memory, and
he's got all that
so
alien electricity or whatever it is.
Yeah, so I thought it was at a similar sort of. That was sort of a bit of a Western almost as well. Yeah. So I put it in that same sort of area there.
Again, for me, like, I quite liked this. Like, I kind of, by the end of it, I was like, it kind of charged me up. I had a good feeling from this film. Even though it's kind of dark and bleak and depressing, I felt like it kind of quickly, it's not a long film, it's an hour and 38 minutes, I think. It kind of really took me quickly on that journey. There wasn't any sort of slow pauses. I loved the old school science fiction, even though we're in some distant future. There's a lot about this that I kind of liked, And it had that fantasy and whimsical element of being on a planet with these farting anuses. That means that as a human, you can't just go out and wander around. And I kind of like the kiddiness of the fact that their costumes and the equipment is all so old school. So I watched this a few days ago, didn't know what it was about, and I liked the journey for C, and I liked the attention of detail. It felt like this has been made by people that love science fiction, and I think that's where I'm feeling. There's a bit of love in this film. There was
a lot of it there, and it's something I've heard a couple directors, writers talk about, is trying to write a Western. I believe Grant Spriteri of I Am Mother said that his first script was a Western. He was gonna single-handedly, when he was a film student or whatever, single-handedly reinvigorate the Western genre, and he wrote this. And then he went, no one buys those now. But I think you can do a Western. You just have to
be creative, and
you've got to make it more
sci-fi.
relevant. I think because. One of the problems with Westerns is it's very hard to, it's that dry, dusty Western thing that doesn't kind of gel with modern life.
No.
Whereas this sort of brings it up, makes it a bit more relevant.
Makes more sense.
Yeah, it does, I think. And it works quite well.
That's cool. So what about science? What science are you going to pick on from...
Well, tell me, these gems they were pulling, hey, could you ever imagine being able to pull a gem out of a living goopy creature?
No.
Because we do.
But we do with pearls.
Pearls.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Pearls. So oysters classically created pearls, but it turns out every mollusk can create a pearl.
Yep.
They aren't all very good-looking pearls.
Yeah.
But a pearl is basically some sort of irritant, and in the case of the classical pearl, usually it's either a bit of their shell that they've suffered a trauma, like they've been banged, and a bit of their shell has gone into their body,
right?
Or whilst they've been feeding, a little parasite has gotten in there and pissed them off. And the poor old parasite, what ends up happening, or a little bit of shell, is it gets this pearl sac, they call it, which is not very imaginative, but it's a part of their endoskeletal tissue. So the goop of their body that's right up on their shell, which excretes the shell and protects them, they produce a bit of that on the inside of their body around this parasite, and it just excretes calcium carbonate and aragonite, which is just another form of calcium carbonate. But it goes in these layered shells held together by protein.
Yeah, right.
And as it layers around, you get this silky protein, and it's because it's in like scales, almost like fish scales, very, very fine, that light can pass through some of the layers because there's little gaps in the shell in these scales that layer it, but reflect off deeper layers scales. And so the more layers and the thinner each layer, the more lustrous and valuable a pearl. And there's two primary sources of pearls we have, which is the pearl oyster, which is what we all know and love.
Yep.
And they're largely only farmed now in Bahrain and Australia, up there in Broome. Yep. But they still have pearl divers, so they've got the pearl farms. I went and had a look at these things. Yeah. There was a wedding I went to up in Broome, and exactly what you'd expect, like basically chunks of wood stuck in the ground, and they seed it with little baby oysters. Yep. And then at some point they go through there and they crack open the oyster and they pop in a bit of shell. So they've got another oyster and they've scooped off and sanitized a bit of shell into a nice round ball, and they pop this like it's a little grain of sand in, and that becomes the irritant, and it grows around it. These cultured pearls aren't as valuable as natural pearls. Of course. The natural pearls happen like maybe 1 in 100 type of thing. Yeah. So they still do get natural pearls because they go down and dig these clams up. Yeah. Clams, oysters. And a lot of them have the cultured pearls in it, but they do still get some natural pearls. Because the natural pearls are longer and slower and from a smaller, like I said, it's a little parasite. Yeah. Not grains of sand. Yeah. They expel grains of sand. Parasites, however, like dig in and keep a hold of them. The other source is the freshwater. I didn't realize this. Freshwater pearls. Yeah. Because I only knew about the ones from the oysters.
I've heard about these, but I don't know what the difference would be. You know, so apart from freshwater.
Mussels that live in rivers leading into the ocean. Yeah, right. And these pearls, they're not as sexy. Yes. Basically, so they're cheaper, generally speaking, but they, because of their nature, they can actually be dyed different colours. Right. So there's like your black pearls and your orange pearls and
is that where they get them
pearls.
From? Right.
Yeah, so they're from the freshwaters. And I thought that was really interesting.
It is.
Because when I was watching this and they're cutting open this goop and going in, I thought, how weird getting a gem out of such a living, and of course, just like you came up with, pearls. And the pearls themselves have been very valuable. Cultured pearls are only a relatively recent invention. Yeah. You go back and the jeweler Cartier, I'm sure you've heard of Cartier, it's a jewellery house. So back in 1910, I want to say, 1904, can't remember, his New York mansion that became his showroom, he bought that with a string of pearls. Yeah. Like this 2 strings of pearls valued at about $1 million today. Yeah, so that's what he bought them with. Because before cultured pearls, you could only get natural pearls.
That's right.
Which meant you had to kill a lot of oysters to get a pearl.
Yeah.
So when you see these, a beaded necklace of pearls, that represents a whole farm's worth of output of oysters, sort of thing. Nowadays, we don't kill oysters to find out if they got a pearl. We just pop them through like a little scanner. It's like an X-ray. It probably actually is X-ray, but it doesn't hurt muscles because they're way too simple. They don't have like soft, gushy organs like we do with these lots of muscle. And it just goes, no pearl. And if there's no pearl, they just go back in the ocean to live their lives happily until next time they're picked up to check for a pearl. Yeah. If they have a pearl, we kill them and eat them. So,
Yeah.
You got to do something with them. But that's okay. They're vegan. Look it up. Look it up. Do a Google search. Oysters are vegan.
Oh, right.
Anyway.
To go full circle, it's funny, isn't it? I thought as well, this is what humans do, don't they? Like, we just kill for money.
In the movie, she went in to harvest organs inside some massive creature.
That's right.
Like a whale type thing, I expect.
Yeah.
And here they are going to this planet just like digging open these.
Yeah.
Like the other thing I was thinking of was like truffles.
Yeah.
Where you've got to be specialist, you got to have the right locations. And
either
things.
A dog or a pig.
They stopped using pigs because pigs eat truffles.
Yeah.
Dogs don't.
That's right.
So that makes a lot of sense. But traditionally in France, the farmers had pigs.
Pigs, yeah.
And so truffles, but I got the same feeling is that they went out. They're just digging up these things. There's no concern about what are they.
Yeah.
Are you causing irreparable ecological damage by destroying?
Probably.
How long does it take for one of these things to mature under the soil there?
But also, then you've just touched on it with the pearls, saying that they were worth so much back in 1905. Yeah, because it was freaking dangerous as well because of the scuba diving equipment, the out in the open ocean, with the equipment that we have. And if you think about that, actually, like the image of that original kind of pearl diving, as I mentioned, the scuba diving outfit.
Yeah, with the
hoses. With the hose, there's so many elements that could go wrong. Whereas, of course, now, as you're saying, an X-ray and all this kind of thing, like the technology and the safety now, and even farming them and stuff, whereas, you go back 100 years where it's like out in the open ocean. In fact, this is quite similar, isn't it? It's like they come across, there's 2 dead guys here.
Yeah.
That's how dangerous it is.
They were just lying there,
Yeah. Well, it's on a moon out in the middle of nowhere there's a lot of value of money, but, it's a risky prospect, right?
Should name a movie.
Should name the movie, yes.
Yes. And pearls, of course, one of the other values in pearls, as soon as you get something that's valuable, and this is true of pretty much every gemstone, medicinal uses.
Yeah, right.
So they've been used for skincare and particularly Chinese medicine.
Yep.
I assume they just sort of had enough wealthy Chinese people back in the imperial China to be able to buy pearls to crush up to use as makeup.
Yeah.
Could you imagine that? There's each pearl costing a couple $1,000 equivalent. You just crush it up and just brush it on your skin to make yourself look pretty.
Yeah, well, why not?
You'd have to be so wealthy.
You would.
And you have bone repair because they think it's like a bit of bone, you're eating it. There has been some research done into the health effects of pearl powder.
Yeah.
And I'll just having a bit of a look at it. There's an article on ScienceDirect.com called The Efficacy of Protein-Rich Pearl Powder on Antioxidant Status in a Randomized Placebo-Controlled Trial. And that's by... and I apologise to all of these authors right now. Hui Fang Chu, Su Chun Shao, Yan Yin Lu, Yi Chun Han, Yu Chen Shen, Kamesh Venkatakrishnan. It's like an Indian guy amongst all the Chinese guys. It's just to throw me off and make it harder for me. Yeah. Actually, we're just going to call you Han Li for making it easier. And Chin Kun Wang. And they tested this on in vitro, so in little glass dishes with a particular bacteria, and they were C. elegans, which apparently is a bacteria commonly used for testing...
Sea monkeys.
Sea monkeys. For testing various oxidative stress. And so they were looking at how well this might make it live longer or reduce oxidative stress, and they found that, yes, it does both of those things.
Yeah.
So if you want to make your bacteria live longer, the protein-rich powders of pearls works wonderfully.
Sounds good.
Humans, who knows? Probably not.
Just rub it all over my body.
I like that. Pearls are just fascinating things. And the idea, because we also get like ivory from sea creatures, tusks, and so on. We shouldn't, but historically we have. And there's been a bit of a rush on those at various times. Like when the United States, the northern states like Canada, which is not a state of the United States, I'm saying.
Yeah.
The northern Canadian states were being opened up by the French and the British. There was quite a lot of trade on the fur, but also on the ivory, walrus tusks, bone from whales, and so forth. So the idea of just going to a new frontier and chopping up creatures and sending the crap back it's been with us for quite a while.
Yeah, we seem to keep doing that. It's a habit. It's a habit.
We don't do it as vigorously now, but our frontiers are microbiological more than anything else now. So
isn't that going back to probably that greedy theme, isn't it? It's like when we first discover something and go, oh, shit, this can make a lot of money. And then we just do it. And then it's like someone goes, yeah, do you realize that you're sending kids inside the belly of a beast and cutting out its organs to get better looking eyes or something? You know, there's like someone goes, no, we shouldn't be doing that.
It takes an hour to get the blood out of her hair.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we've invented a new shampoo. It now only takes 20 minutes. Yeah. Oh, okay, well, yeah, sure.
But to invent that new shampoo, we've got to send little tiny babies inside.
The shampoo is made out of. You don't ask.
You just kill the babies of this alien species. Who cares?
More legs.
Yeah.
Smaller. Yeah, it's not great.
No.
Don't talk about the shampoo.
No.
But it is better at getting blood out of hair.
Yeah.
Which is helpful for most of our enterprises.
What is the old saying? Do and then ask for forgiveness later.
Easier to ask forgiveness than ask permission. I think. Yeah, because I think if you did put it to the vote, should we go to this planet and brutally destroy and kill whatever life form? We don't even know what the life form is.
Yeah.
But it's got a gem inside of it.
These gems are awesome. They're very pretty.
They're very nice. We don't even know what use these gems have.
That's right.
They could be the future of.
They could be like kryptonite, right? They could be like some sort of energy source. Or, yeah. Again, this film doesn't get into. That's right. You and I'd presumed, it's a pretty looking gem, but like maybe it is like coal, right? Like maybe it's an energy source.
Yeah,
you just don't know.
And interesting enough, to the prospectors, it didn't matter.
No, because it's just the value, right?
So anyway, that's me. That's a bit of science, a bit of biology there.
Pearls.
Pearls in oysters.
Yeah.
And if you get a chance, head on up to Broome and jump a ride on one of the pearl luggers and see some whales. Jump in the ocean. Don't get eaten by sharks.
Sounds good.
That's what I did. Avoided being eaten by sharks. I wasn't.
Yeah, well, you're here today, so I presume so.
Well, most of me's here today.
You are bending that knee rather weirdly.
Yes. Okay, so cinematography here. So it's not much. It's a bit different to some of the other movies we've watched, I think.
Yeah, I think some of the technicalities I'd just like to touch on is that this cinematography, two things. We're up close, we're tight, we're personal, right, with C and Ezra and the father. So we don't get a lot of these, like location-based wide shots. But then at the same time, we do have shots of the forest that kind of create the forest as a bit of a character. It kind of creates a setting. And sometimes films do this really well, and I think they did this quite well, that I kept expecting a monster, a creature, another person, whatever, to be in the forest, but it was just the forest, and I think, even like you said before, we came across like the sound like pigs rooting away and snorting and like eating or something, and then when she turns, it's just these little bubbling, puffing buttholes, puffing out the toxic gas, which is obviously deadly. So it's pretty versus.
Sounds like my daughter, but yeah.
But yeah, the forest, like we had some of these weird shots, like where the characters were off doing their things, and we just sort of saw the trees, and we saw up close, and we saw the plumes of toxicity, and yeah, so it's kind of like it added to an element. And in fact, that there never ever was a creature, or there never ever was something else, I think that's a reason why I liked this film.
It wasn't even a bird that I saw.
No.
There's nothing, or insects. I don't think they showed any insects either.
No, there was a little weird, caterpillar thing.
Oh,
red caterpillar.
that's right. There's a little caterpillar.
But
thing.
apart from that, there wasn't anything else. So that was interesting.
Actually, I wonder if that caterpillar was included on purpose. Like, was that in the script all along? He wanted to show that as like something interesting, or if it was just on the day of filming, they saw this weird ass looking caterpillar, because I think it was a real caterpillar.
They just shot it
and they just went,
changed the
that
colour.
looks alien. Yeah, we'll get a shot of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, that's something we need to find out about.
But yeah, there's the trees swaying and the leaves brushing and the little puffing smoke. I don't know. It just felt like the forest was a character on its own, but it created an eeriness and a tension, but it never delivered. Like, it never was like there was a fatal blow.
There was a
forest.
scene there where they're looking around the camera, did that kind of, there's that tense, deep, vibrating, bass sound, and the cameras had moved in on some dark areas of the forest.
But there was never
nothing.
There. Yeah, there was nothing there. And I guess that might be that homage to the Western, like you'd have those open plains, those huge rocks, that they have in the middle of America, wherever. And it's just like sometimes in those Westerns, they just linger on them. And it's almost like the setting is saying, you can survive this, you're tough, you're rough and tough and ready for the frontier of the unknown.
You're at least as rough and tough as a teenage girl.
That's right. The music, we had this weird futuristic rock music. She listens to it. I believe that the actress is a musician as well, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, there wasn't anything. And then it's interesting that she played the music, and then the mercenary woman was the one that played the music.
Yeah, and she used it it to escape and to live in her fantasy world. And this mercenary woman used it as a weapon. And it was an old-timey, almost like French World War II sounding
rock kind
weird
of
stuff.
Weird rocky, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously like not rock music.
European ethnic sort of sound to it.
But it's interesting that the two women had the music. You know what I mean? Like, no, the men didn't have the music.
Was that the mercenary woman some sort of a shadow of C?
Maybe.
Because C, the music is enjoyable,
yep,
and she's on purpose and she's using it to lose herself. The mercenary woman, in contrast, is projecting the music to deaden other people.
Yep.
Rather than block other people out of her own world, she's deadening people out of her world.
Yeah.
Like, so it's almost like a mirror. I'd only just thought about that. It's a bit of a mirror contrast there. And is that where C could have gone had she hung around with her dad?
Yeah, you're right.
Ended up instead of,
if you were greedy, that's where you would end up as a mercenary. Whereas C's not going down that path.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is. Yeah,
layers of an onion.
That is
that you got to wash and get a gem out of.
I've talked a lot about the symbols, but like the spaceship, the spacesuits, the headphones, the buttons, the lights, the helmets, the weapons, they're all so crude compared to where we should be. But I believe that the filmmakers have done that deliberately to kind of make it connect to that idea of a Western, that like in a Western you have like the white man with the gun out in this environment where they don't really fit. Like it's them trying to, I've going to film school and stuff, they talk about Westerns are like that male dominance over an environment that they don't necessarily fit. And once you moved beyond the original Westerns, you always got into that point that the Indians, the indigenous people, were like much suited to the environment, whereas the white man, and quite often it was that they'd talk about in Westerns, the symbol of like the train line, like they're building the train line, they're forcing it, penetrating, blowing up a mountain, sending, a train through a big mountain and destroying the environment, and when you get to sort of something like Kevin Costner's Dance with Wolves, there's a real sort of understanding of like the white man versus the indigenous man, and so you kind of, I think in this, it's like, again, it's a symbolic version of like the natural environment of the planet versus, and it's like green and beautiful forests, but it's toxic. But here we are, we're just in there, And you're exactly right. There's no explanation. Cut this tree root, pull out this possibly living organism, do things to it to get this gem.
Yeah.
That's worth money. You know, and so it's very similar to, again, what we do in the gold rush that, you know, let's just blow up a mountain and for the sake of this.
Well, it also reminded me a bit of Pale Rider, where you had you got the prospectors panning for gold there, and there's that one who's trying to crack his way through that boulder because he's convinced there's something under there, but it's all very manual. It's a bit thankless. And then you got the landowner dude who's just like hydro blasting the mud heedlessly down. And that's kind of shown as being a little bit callous. Yeah. But it's not really a very environmental message in that movie.
No.
You know, that's just what they're doing. They're there just going through. And that's the difference there between the prospectors that are doing that one little gem going, oh, this is really good. Yeah, yeah. To then the mercenaries that are sitting there on this big treasure trove and they've got guns out and all sorts.
Yeah. I agree. And also with the editing, that the fact that we have this filter of the toxic plume in the air. I've seen other films where they've kind of done a bit of this idea of maybe dust or something like that, but they sort of tone it down. Whereas here, the filmmakers, they kept it consistent throughout the whole film. They never swayed from the fact that the air had all this crap in it. And they kept it consistent for the whole film. It never went away, you know. So the scenes where they are with the locals inside their little hut and inside the cabins and that, the man-made stuff, it's not there, obviously, but anywhere in the forest, it's always there. It's consistent.
Yeah.
And I definitely have seen other films that they tone it down a little bit, maybe as the story progresses, because, of course, you can't quite see the character's face and things like this. But this film, they just consistently...
Well, they're wearing helmets the whole time, so you sort of lost that battle already.
Yeah. All right. Well, Surrey. That probably brings us to the end tonight of talking about Prospect. And we'll move on to our next one. So let us know on our social media, Instagram, Facebook, website, email, Twitter. You can find us pretty much just by looking at Space Brains Podcast through all of those social media. Let us know what you thought about Prospect and what you thought about what we've detailed. So hit us up and let us know what you thought. And our next episode will be, it is Surrey's pick.
It'll be a 2008 movie from Britain called Doomsday.
Oh, Doomsday.
I picked it because it's called Doomsday and it's R-rated, 18 plus, and it's unusual to get an R-rated 18 plus film. And that's for sci-fi, violence and so forth.
Yeah, right. Okay, cool. I have not seen it.
No.
I've not heard of it.
Bob Hoskins.
Okay. Interesting.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, you know what we're going to be talking about next episode. So after you've let us know what you think about our thinking on Prospect, go watch Doomsday so you can catch up and watch listen to our next episode of Space Brains.
See ya.
See ya.